bring speakers in necessarily because they're in sport management or sport medicine, sport research, sport coaching, or fitness management. So we try to bring in people that I call trendsetters. And I think one of the things that you'll find with Steve is that he is a trendsetter. One of the trends that he's involved in is this whole thing of corporate sponsorship. And it was interesting for me to see how Delchamps became a major player in the Senior Bowl and certainly became a prime mover and an example of corporate sponsorship in the world of sport today. So without further ado, Steve has presented to the convocation before. That particular convocation was when we were still tied to the Sport and Society class, and we rated every one of the convocation speakers that particular quarter. And Steve got the best rating for the best convocation speaker for that quarter. So we can't pay him big dollars, but we can give him compliments. Steve, we welcome you back to the Academy. As Dr. Snyder said, I had the opportunity to be here once before. As a matter of fact, I think we were thinking a few minutes ago, it's probably been the first month that I came to Mobile. And my presentation at that time was really one of transition. And, you know, I said I had a plan, but I didn't really go into much detail about it because you don't like talking about your plan until you know if it's going to work or not. And if you saw the game, or if you happened to be around it, we played this past year, January 22nd, and what happened, basically in a nutshell, was the staff and the committee that's involved in the Senior Bowl, all the variables and all the factors that we can control, they did a real good job with. Obviously in sport, there's some things you can't control. And the things that we couldn't control, we got a little lucky on. And those two things, I think, what just came together and gave us a chance to be successful. I'm killing a little time up here because I see the video machine coming down. I wanted to start by showing you a little bit of the video. You know, the Senior Bowl is always blacked out. It's a national telecast option. Did anybody here see any of the national telecasts anywhere in the country? What I want to do before I make any comments, I just want to show you the end of the game real quickly. It's an edited version. And then show you ESPN's pregame intro into the game. Go ahead. And then I'd like to lead into why that's important to us and what the plan was to have this being the end result. Y'all not going to take points away from it, but it's going to delay, are you? No. I want you to see this because this is the end result of everything we do.
He controlled the long ball as well as anybody in college football. And on the other side of the catch, Aralee Alexander can catch the long ball as well as any receiver in the country. Put it in. First and goal. And they come right back with Johnson, and he is so quick in short yardage. If you miss your responsibility, just go ahead. It's a memory. Well, Johnson's what opened up the passing lanes for Marvin Graves. I think they were so worried about LaShawn Johnson, that great burst that he has, that Brooks and Crumpler and the whole crew, Alexander, have been able to do some things deep like with a great blocker.
We'll come back and see the last series of the South has the football.
Blocked on the tight end, and then tossed to Steve Roderick. Lewis blocked the corner. He blocked Mansky. Shula's team. Who's going to make the play over on that side of the field? Eichloff with the extra point. It's up.
Sponsorship. They're saying that was the biggest logo ESPN has ever telecast before. And they asked us why do we have such a big logo. We told them we never had a sponsor that big before.
On the other side, Emmanuel, Terry Smith. Who comes in at quarterback? Will be Stan White or Doug Nussmeier, or do you bring Kelvin Simmons?
This is where you get a little lucky. Listen to where they set this up.
Barry Sanders. I'll tell you, after saving Sean Johnson today, he's got to be putting talked about in that same area as a game-breaking super blue chipper. It's definitely skyrocketed today, so maybe it's good for a call way up to the top 10.
This is Charlie Garner from the gate. Hang on. Foot race from Myron Bell, and he'll push him out of bounds and then tackles him out of bounds. That could have cost a penalty. Well, coming up next on the PGA Tour, third round coverage of the Northern Telecom Open from Tucson, Arizona. Known for its long-standing tradition as the launching point for the new PGA Tour stars. We'll also see some action from some well-known superstars, Payne Stewart, Curtis Strange, and Fuzzy Zeller. So that's coming up next. PGA action, Northern Telecom Open from Tucson.
It's going to be Stan White, Ron, and I believe he'll be looking for Kevin Lee, number 37 of Alabama, and Terry Smith, number 24 of Clemson. They have to be the long ball throws from it. 3 over 1 left, 3 timeouts. There's the late flag.
Well, we mentioned that Bell was high in pursuit, and he hit him after he had gone out of bounds.
Jimmy Hartman will give that 15 yards.
Here are the numbers on Stan White. 10 of 16, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns in this ballgame. And he needs one right now with 3:01 remaining in the ballgame. If you look at Kevin Lee from Alabama, this crowd would level up with a lot coming for him to see him get the game winner. And you put it up on top, and that's who he's looking for. He's safe at the 5, and touchdown, Kevin Lee and the sack.
That's where you get a little lucky when the commentators set it up, know what the crowd wants, and it happens. You can't orchestrate that. This happens, but we'll take it.
Number 3.
Okay.
We just got that time now for the other team to score, too.
Oh, certainly more. It's 2:52.
Kevin Lee, nothing fancy about this pattern. He just breaks to the inside, runs right by number 3, Vaughn Bryant on the Stanford. And a good throw by Stan White for the touchdown. Stan White hasn't lost a game this year and doesn't want to lose this one either.
All right, I'm going to fast forward. That was the end of the game as far as the score, and I think this comes back with less than 3 minutes left to go. But I want you to see the intro, because I thought ESPN did a real good job trying to target what the Senior Bowl was all about and the uniqueness of it. End of the game right here. All right, this is the intro.
For edition of the Senior Bowl from Land Memorial Stadium in
We brought the
Mobile,
Olympian
Alabama.
this year.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ron Franklin. You know, if it pertains to football at this stage, it's big, as witness to all the fans who have come out here today at Mobile to see the stars of tomorrow. Now, a lot of these kids you're going to know because you've seen them on television before, over their 4 years in college. But there are also a group of kids that you have not heard of or seen before, and that's the great thing about the All-Star games. They're all beginning on a level playing field because the pros don't care if you played before 100,000 or 20,000 in college. They just want to know one thing. Can you play in the National Football League on Sunday afternoons? And that's what all of these young men are about to start finding out in just a few moments.
The Senior Bowl is unique because of the pro influence in the game. All the NFL teams and Canadian teams will have their coaches and scouts here all week and watch every move the player makes. The drills and the practice sessions are designed for the pro coaches because there's more contact than ever in any other All-Star game in these drills. And if you're lucky enough to coach an All-Star game like Don Shula and Richie Kotite, your input in the draft is invaluable. In all-star games, it's usually the major college stars, like the players that make up my top 10 list, that steal the headlines. But down at the practices in Mobile this week, there's been two unsung prospects that have grabbed the attention of the NFL scouts. Those players are LaShawn Johnson, running back from Northern Illinois, and John Theory, outside linebacker from Alcorn State. Johnson is right up there with Marshall Faulk, the #1 game breaker in the draft. He projects into the mid-first round. Theory is 6'4", 247 pounds, has all the physical and athletic skills the NFL wants in an attack outside linebacker. He also projects into the mid-first round area.
Hi, everybody. Not only is the Senior Bowl a chance for these players to showcase their abilities, but it's a chance for them to spend an entire week playing for and being instructed by professionals. You think they're excited? Well, Jermaine Younger of Utah State said that he was so pumped to be here, that this is the bowl for the seniors to come to because of the NFL supervision. And wide receiver Kevin Lee of Alabama added that when he first met his coach in the South Squad, Don Shula, that he was intimidated because he had never talked to a legend before. Well, as you might imagine, practice this week has been very businesslike for these seniors under the scrutiny of the pros.
You've worked hard in your college careers to get to where you are right now. This is just another stepping stone as to where you want to go. You're going to have good recommendations, all of you, for your practice habits, your study habits, the way that you approach this ball game. Now we want to go out and win the football game, so we've got something good to remember this week. Let's do it, man.
ESPN's exclusive coverage of the 1994 Del Champ Senior Bowl.
Anyway, very few people in Mobile, I think, since the game is always blacked out, I don't think we realize the national impact that our event has from coast to coast. Sometimes, we just say, hey, we got an all-star game. And you'll kind of get a little bit complacent with the Don Shulas or the Mike Holmgrens or the Bill Walsh's in the past coming to Mobile and the top players being here. But our game is a uniqueness in the world of sport because it's not just an entertainment value. The Senior Bowl has a real purpose. And the purpose is its value to the National Football League and its value to the players that come here because their career the career's not at stake, but they have a chance to enhance themselves in the eyes of the people that are basically going to make the decisions and control their futures for the next, hopefully, long careers. What we wanted to do, though, is it was real important to make sure the Senior Bowl was not just a talent show. We wanted it to be a competitive football game. And that's why I wanted to show you the end of the game. We couldn't have drawn up a better script. Just have an Auburn quarterback throwing the winning touchdown pass, an Alabama receiver here in this part of the country. You can't ask for anything better. We want the people to stay in their seats, to be excited about being at the game and to lend the fan support. On the other side of it, we wanted to create a situation where the players had something to play for as well. And of course, that's one reason you probably read about it. We went back to more of a traditional north-south type format, and those were the real reasons. Our game, we don't have a 10-point rule like a blue-gray game does, or the East-West and the Hula Bowl. If y'all ever seen those all-star games, they have a 9-point rule. Anytime another team gets ahead by 9 points, they never get the ball back. You just keep, anytime if you get behind, you just keep getting the ball over and over. And that's why when you see those games, they're never blowouts. They're never lopsided. They always give the other team a chance to go. What they try to do is orchestrate a competitive football game. You see, there's no other reason to play. They don't go out there and really work and prepare during practice for the game. The game is purely a reward to the player, and it is an entertainment value. And there's nothing in the world wrong with that. It's just that the uniqueness of the Senior Bowl is we think there's a purpose behind it, and we want to create a competitive atmosphere, and we don't put any restrictions to try to orchestrate the game. I was sitting in the press box, and the president of our game, when the South scored again, then the North came back down the field and threw an interception instead of scoring, and the president told me, he looked at me and he said, they really need to score there. The South's getting too far ahead. I said, don't worry, I think there's plenty of time left on the clock. Then, of course, when there was just under 3 minutes left and the North went ahead, I looked at him and I said, are you satisfied now?
And he said, well, now South needs to score. And I said, well, you got to make up your mind what you want. The point is, I don't think you can orchestrate the game. I think you can make a competitive situation and you leave it up to the talent on the field and you let the coaches prepare. But that is a real unique factor in our game. The whole week prior to the Eagles coaching staff and the Dolphins coaching staff coming to Mobile, they met every day, all day. When they arrived here in Mobile, they had a playbook for each player by position. They had the practice schedules in hand. They had their game plans, both offensively and defensively, in a kicking game. I mean, they were ready to go. They were well prepared. Coach Shule, the first thing he does, and it looked like it was going to rain on Monday afternoon, the first scheduled practice, he elected to do away with a meeting just so he could get on the practice field sooner. What I'm saying is there's a lot of preparation that goes into this game, and I think that's one reason why you saw such a clean, well-executed, competitive football game is because of the seriousness of it and the preparation that goes into it, not just because the players work hard, but because the coaches work hard as well. What we did, and this comes from my background in coaching, I believe in order to attain a goal, you've got to sit down and set your goals and how you're going to go about doing them. You got to have a plan. And what we did was we sat down with the staff. And some of these goals, I'll share them with you, may surprise you, but this is what we came up with that we thought was important for the Senior Bowl. The first goal, first thing we wanted to say at the end of the year that we did was to enhance the national reputation of the Senior Bowl and of Mobile, Alabama. I'm going to address that real quick because it's something I believe in strongly, but I'm not going to take too much of your time with it. I believe there's no great cities in this country that aren't great sports towns. I'll give you my justification for that. You think of the top cities in this country, whether it be San Francisco, New York, Atlanta, Dallas, Miami, and you can immediately associate them with either a sporting event or a sports team. There's a relationship there, and there's something that triggers. Think of the impact of sport in the smaller communities. What would the communities be without the influence of athletics in, say, small town like Tuscaloosa, Auburn, Tallahassee? I don't know of a great city that is not also a great sports town, and I think that's where Mobile and the Senior Bowl come together. I think we enhance the reputation of Senior Bowl. It means we're also enhancing Mobile. Sometimes it's hard for us to understand when we're sitting here and we read about the Senior Bowl happening in our own backyard, that somebody in Seattle, Washington was watching that. That's their impression of Mobile, Alabama. And that's good for all of us. We are the only, when I say we, I'm talking about Senior Bowl. We are the only televised event left in our town. I'm talking about nationally televised. Now, I'm really hoping that we get the junior miss back on national TV. I know a lot of people are working for it. We think that's a great responsibility that we have to maintain that national exposure, not just for ourselves, but for our community as well. We expanded this year, talking about how we're going to reach this goal of enhancing national reputation. We entered into an agreement with BRN, Business Radio Network, who's a department of American Sports Radio Network. Our game was broadcast on 279 stations. It hit basically 93% of the country. More importantly than that was 5 hours a day on that same 93% of the United States. American Sports Radio Network, 5 hours a day, had live sports talk show from the Senior Bowl, all during Senior Bowl week. And that's great exposure for our game. It's good for them. And they plan on doing that again next year. The other goal that we said, leading up to the final product, how are we going to be able to restore the community pride and increase community involvement in the Senior Bowl? Senior Bowl came here from Jacksonville, Florida in 1950. And this has been Mobile's game. That philosophy was one of the biggest reasons for us going back to a traditional format and for us reaching out to the community again. It started as Mobile's game. We want it to be Mobile's game. Now, obviously, we attract sponsorships and so forth from outside of this area, but we're always going to keep our roots here at home. A little bit of my philosophy there as well. I think I know when we used to set up recruiting bases, we used to recruit nationally, but you you always took care of your backyard first and foremost, because when it all came down to it, you know, you wanted the people that you lived with involved with you. Talk about loyalty. We had some loyalty to a lot of people. When we worked the national radio deal out, KRG Radio had been doing our game on a regional basis. Been doing a good job with it. But we had an opportunity to expand to a national basis. But when we worked a contract with VRN, we just asked them for one thing: make KRG the flagship station in our region, out of loyalty. One of the big things was the involvement of Dell Champs as a title sponsor. When Dell Champs asked for a first right of refusal and really got serious about it, we had some title sponsorship proposals on several major corporations across the country. And being able to lock in to a local corporation as opposed to gaining, I won't throw any names out right now, in different parts of the country. You know, we felt like that was another show of community involvement. We also felt like it would be a working relationship as opposed to, hey, thank you for your donation and let us entertain you. We working together. This is probably, the Dell Champs Senior Bowl sponsorship is probably the most unique title sponsorship that there's out there. And I'm not at liberty to go into all the details of it, but I can tell you that both parties benefit greatly from this arrangement. And it is indeed a true working relationship. And we both have the same goals as far as the community. We're both involved in charitable donations and other activities. And it seems to be something that's going to last for a long, long time there. But that was all part of the local deal. I'm going to skip through some of them because my video caught me short there. Talk about the Senior Bowl and the purpose of it to the National Football League. Things have changed a lot. 2 years ago, you had a 12-round draft. You had pros on college campuses all the time. Access to the students, student athletes. Well, things are different. You've got a 7-round draft now. You've got a salary cap that kicks in that they've never had to deal with before. You've got free agency. That means that all these teams are now doing like the colleges and they're recruiting. And you have more underclassmen coming out to the draft than ever before. And the whole philosophy and concept of the way the National Football League is having to evaluate and build teams has changed. While that's going on, there's been a regression in the collegiate ranks with limiting the access that the pros have to their campuses. You've probably heard the October rule. Rules aren't passed, they're just recommended. Different conferences pretty much agree on the rules and then allow their own schools to operate independently. I know in the state of Mississippi, there's only one school in the state of Mississippi that allows access to their campus by the pros anytime. Just let them know you're coming. The others only set aside 1 month during the season and must be assigned dates that the university assigns during the spring. So they don't have as much access, but there's more need than ever to evaluate and get to know these guys. Take the combine that was held, tomorrow will be 3 weeks ago in Indianapolis. It's a real trend going where more and more of the athletes are refusing to work out at the combine. They're opting for individual workouts back on their campus or back at their home community. So the Senior Bowl gives the pro guys an opportunity to come here and put their hands on them, work with them, meet with them, get to know them, not just as football players, but as people as well. What happens with a guy when he is in college, just 3 or 4 years competitively, he builds up points and he gets a rating. Those points will not be taken away from you because of 1 week. 1 week ain't going to take away what you did for 3 or 4 years. But you can add to it. Because what happens in the collegiate systems, a lot of times they're not asked to do or given the opportunity to do the type of techniques and fundamentals assignments or even maybe be put in the position that they're going to be asked to play on that next level. And so by coming here, extending their hand to the league and saying, hey, I want to work with you, automatically ups their stock right there. Now what it can do is it allows the pro guys to figure out which system is best for what player. And of course, one of the real keys to success in athletics is putting yourself in a situation to be successful. I mean, if you're not a man coverage corner, or safety rather, let's take the safety. If you're not a man-to-man cover safety, and you know, you work out your contract deal with Chicago Bears, I mean, you're kidding yourself. I mean, they're a man cover team. Now, if you've gone to Los Angeles or Miami, which is going to play mostly zone, now you got a chance to stay in the league. You got to put yourself in the right situation. Well, that's what these pro guys want to do too. They don't want to draft a guy that doesn't fit into the system. And the only way you can know that is by working with the player. They get more evaluation done in 1 week than you can sit there and watch every video, every game that's ever played. And of course, the other thing is you have a chance to sell the intangibles that you possess. And that's becoming more and more important. I can tell you, this is a true comment. Obviously, I talked to these top guys many times over the course of the season and the months prior to them reporting to the Senior Bowl. The first question I got from every National Football League representative was the question about character. How they handle themselves. Will they up front with you? First question. See, that 40-yard dash, that's easy to figure out. What kind of person is he? That's going to give the insight of how they're going to handle fourth quarter or handle an adverse situation that obviously comes up in sport. Talk about the players, and I do want to leave some time for questions. The players has really been interesting, and probably one advantage I had in coming into this position was that that's all I'd ever done, was dealt with the players. I pretty much knew their concerns prior to me coming to the Senior Bowl. And the player that needs the exposure or needs to move up, say had a bad senior year or didn't live up to some expectations, I mean, those are the guys biting at the bit to get here. The top guys, those are the hard sells. And they have some legitimate concerns as well, because if they're as good as they think they are, you know, why do anything to lower your stock? It's a legitimate concern. The only problem with that philosophy is that only applies to 2 or 3 players each year. And there's about 35 of them that think they're those 2 or 3. And getting that point across and them seeing reality is a very difficult thing. Really what it came down to was this. Was a guy a competitor? Did he want to control his own destiny? Or did he want to believe what everybody was telling him and let the chips fall with it, mate? Had a lot of pleasant surprises taking that approach to it. Bryant Young from Notre Dame defensive tackle. He'll be the first one taken in this year's draft. First senior taken. He played because he wanted to try to go ahead of Dan Wilkinson, the underclassman coming out from Ohio State. There's no question. He's the best senior defensive lineman in the country. But he wanted to move ahead of that underclassman because he was sharp enough to realize that being the first senior wasn't good enough for him. He's competitive. LaShawn Johnson, you heard talk about that. LaShawn, and the reason why I kind of like LaShawn, I coached against him. Last year I was in coaching, and I didn't need to see any draft rating to know he was a good player. LaShawn Johnson, he wants to go ahead of Marshall Faulk. I mean, LaShawn Johnson is the first senior running back taken in the draft. But with the salary cap, you see, everybody that's taken before you, regardless of your position, backs you up. It used to be, if you were a first rounder, you're a first rounder. No longer. The money difference between the first 5, the second 5, and the third 5 is unbelievable. The money difference between the first 5 taken in the first round and the last 5 of the first round, I it's not even like you're in the same round at all. I mean, we're talking a lot of money differences here. Whereas in the past, if you were a team's first pick, it didn't matter where you went, as long as you were their first pick, you were awarded that type of salary. So the salary cap and structure has changed things. And these smart guys, they're seeing it. Aubrey Beavers. Aubrey Beavers is here because, and he's an outside linebacker from Oklahoma. A lot of people had him rated the highest guy because he had an advisor that was sharp enough to find out that a guy by the name of John Theory from Alcorn was putting all his marbles in the Senior Bowl. That guy advised Aubrey, hey, you better get over here because this guy is fixing to knock you back, cost you some money. So Aubrey wanted to come and compete with John Theory. The real competitors, what they did, I'm talking about the real competitors, they picked one all-star game, the Senior Bowl. And I think the reason why they did it was it's a purpose to it. It's not just a reward. There's a real purpose and a reason for being here. Doug Nussmeier, quarterback from Idaho. Very few people have heard of Doug Nussmeier. All year long, the #1 rated senior quarterback. That's the kind of people we try to attract. What happens is selecting the players is this. There are 3 categories that I use to select the players in. Okay? First one's marquee players. Regardless of a pro potential marquee player, name recognition guys. The guys you've seen, in the bowl games and, the top players. A marquee guy, I've come to define marquee meaning the best player on the best team. Doesn't have anything to do with anything else. Marquee's the best player on the best team. The guy gets all the headlines. Yeah, we're going to take a certain amount of those guys because the fans want it. They want to see those people. Second category, the guys with outstanding pro potential. It doesn't make any difference to me if nobody heard of Anthony Phillips from Texas A&I. He'll be the first safety taken in this year's draft. We're going to take the guy. Very good. That's our responsibility to the National Football League. Very few things in athletics last as long as 45 years. But for 45 years, there's been agreement between the league and the Senior Bowl to furnish coaching staffs. And, of course, our agreement, nothing in writing. Our agreement is simply, hey, we're going to give you the players that's going to make it worth your while. And guys like, and I wish I had a roster here because I can't think of all of them, but a lot of the names when you look at them, wonder, how did this guy get here? It's because of the pro potential that they have. And I feel a real strong obligation to make it worth Coach Shula's while. And it's probably a good example, and I know the Academy here recognized him at the annual Award of Sport. Coach Shula sets the all-time record for most wins in professional football, doesn't make the playoff for the first time in years, probably not real happy about it. Gets a call from the league office and says, hey, what do you think about spending a week in Mobile and coaching the Senior Bowl? Doesn't even hesitate and takes it because of the value that it would mean to his organization on draft day. And I think that's really what it's all about. And with him feeling that way, it was important that when he got here in town that I did my job. And that he was satisfied with the talent level that was here. The third thing is local representation. In other words, if a person is from the area, you're always going to have X amount of people that, for whatever reason, there's a lot of local interest. And I'm always going to be sensitive to that. I'm always going to recognize that concern. Now, coming from a coaching background, I just ask that local guy to do one thing. Accept the responsibility and be able to compete on the national level. The invitation, hey, earn it. When you get here, compete. That's your obligation. Now, I'll look at a guy, if he's from Mobile, I'll look at him hard. I'll give him every benefit of the doubt. But after that invitation is extended now, make sure you come in here and you can compete on the national level. And I don't think that's too much to ask for a competitor. If this game is going to be on the national scope and be the premier game from coast to coast, then everybody that steps out there on that field has to be able to compete on the national level. Otherwise, you're compromising the game. And I don't think we can do that. The reason why the top guys come, again, either because they're competitors or or they want to go ahead and get all the questions answered. Everybody going on draft day, there's a question about it. There's no perfect athlete that's out there. And go ahead and get the question answered. Good or bad, get it answered. Because any question that's about an individual on draft day gets real big if it hasn't been answered. You're better off, the team will take you, they'll invest money if they know exactly what they're getting. You try to hide something, it gets real big the more they talk about it. So get your questions answered. It doesn't just apply to draft day, especially with this free agency thing. Earlier this week, we had 3 different teams call the Senior Bowl office, want some background information. These 3 teams were 3 staffs that had coached the game in the past 4 or 5 years that remember liking a player that they coached here, and because of the free agency market, wanted to do a little background research on them. Brett Favre. I worked with Brett Favre. He's now the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. Brett Favre, when he was down here, had a tremendous week. Met with all the quarterback coaches. You know, he did his thing. On draft day, he gets drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. He's sitting the bench. But one of the guys that he met when he was down here was Mike Holmgren, who was at the time was a quarterback coach for the San Francisco 49ers. He gets the Green Bay head coaching job. First thing he does is trade for Brett Favre. I mean, the deal with meeting these people and the establishing relationships is going to benefit them throughout their career, not just on draft day. And I think that's what some of these sharper guys are starting to see. That they can have some long-term benefits, not just something there. Third thing, most importantly, they want to separate themselves from the underclassmen. The Senior Bowl is the only forum in which a top senior athlete can come, have the complete attention of the National Football League without any underclassmen. So when they go to the combine, the underclassmen are there. The Senior Bowl is the only opportunity that they have to separate themselves from the underclassmen. Next thing is to prepare themselves for the combine. We bring in, the guy who runs the combine, of course, is Dick Babb from National Football Scouting. He's here every year. And I told some of these top guys, hey, you want me to get you a dude? They were well prepared. They knew what to expect. I think we all know in the world of athletics, you're going to do pretty well if you know what you're fixing to be asked to do. And we'll work with them. We'll help them prepare for the combine. One of the biggest stumbling blocks to a top athlete was the fact that the Senior Bowl in past years had 2-a-day practices. First week I was on the job, I asked for all the practice schedules for the last 5 years because it was a concern of mine. And I tell you why it was a concern of mine. Not because I was worried about it being too tough, or I was worried about the contact, or anything like that. I've coached enough 2-a-days and 3-a-days in my life for that. What I was concerned about is on January the 21st, you line up and you ask 90 guys, each one of them with different levels of conditioning and different levels of contact readiness to practice 2 times a day. It didn't make sense to me from a sports medicine point of view. You had guys, you look at the roster, some of them played the East-West game the week before, it was coming in. Some nicked up, some better off because they just gotten all the soreness behind them. Some guys played in New Year's Day bowl games and then report to the Senior Bowl. Some guys hadn't done a thing competitively, contact-wise, since the middle of November when their season ended. And how do you take a guy that has not hit anybody since the middle of November and line him up with a guy that the previous Saturday just played a 60-minute ball game and say they're ready for 2-a-day practices? Didn't have a thing to do with who was tough or who wasn't tough. Just had a concern of injury. And I think that these top guys, the biggest concern, other than their stock dropping, is the injury. Don't get hurt. Very valid point. Very valid point. That's why that I can assure you the Senior Bowl has purchased, and for our athletes, has the best coverage that money can buy, whether it be a catastrophic injury or whether it be a sprained ankle. And I think it's important that when I talk to these guys that they know that, because So many of them fixing to be millionaires, and that injury is a concern. That's also why this past summer I went up to New York, and when I met with the league office, not only negotiated the new deal where the coaches don't come here from the wild card playoff game, but they come here, they're the staff that has the best record that don't make the playoffs. Also tied into trainers. This was the first year both the Eagles and the Dolphins, they brought their complete medical staff with them. Matter of fact, we used to laugh at the Eagles a little bit, a very complimentary laugh. What they had set up out there was just short of a mass surgical unit. I mean, they brought everything. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, I told them, I said, yes, send your stuff down here, send it to COD. You ought to see that bill. I mean, they said, I'll never make that mistake again. But the point was, hey, we're concerned about these guys. You're right. You ought to be concerned about your readiness for contact and your injury. And as a result of that, we're going to take care of you as far as practice schedule, as far as having the best available trainers here, as far as insurance coverage and so forth. I mean, I agree with them. The other concern they have is simply, am I going to be put in a situation that's unfair to me? And here it is. The guy's had a great career. You know, newspaper guys say he's a great player. So he read words. You know, he's the best at doing this or the best at doing that. What if I go down there and they put me in a situation that's not fair to me, that he's never done before? See, the other All-Star games, if you watch them, there's a lot of trickery. There's not just trick plays, but gadgets and schemes done, and players doubled and triple teamed, and it's also a collegiate. There's a collegiate alignment as well. Take Rob Waldrop, NCAA Defensive Player of the Year, Outland Trophy winner. He chooses the Senior Bowl as the only game because, see, in college, he's a nose guard. 50 defense, he's a nose guard. You know the value of a nose guard in the National Football League? Nothing. He needed to come here where he knew he was going to be in a pro alignment, not be lined up on the center, and establish himself as a defensive tackle. That's why he was here. That's what he and I talked about. Shante Carver from Arizona State. They said he had a bad year. Media guys said he had a bad year this year because he set a record in the Pac-10 for sacks the year before. Didn't have half as many this year. Something's wrong with Shante. Well, it don't take a genius to pull a video out and see Shante. They had 2 linemen on him in the back. My question to that guy writing the paper is, what's the guy on the other side of the line doing from him? How come he don't have any more sacks? I understand why Shante did. So I told him, I said, you come here. You're going to be in a 4-3 defensive alignment. Offensively, they've got to have a tight end. They've got to have a back. He said, what are you saying? I said, you're not going to be double teamed. It's going to be one-on-one. I said, do you want any more than that? He went up and played in the East-West game prior to coming to us. Oh, get that tape out. They grabbed him, doubled him, did everything to him. Talked to him after the game. He said, hey, this, I don't know if I'm going to play another game. He said, they told me here I wasn't going to get double teamed. Tough sell. Hey, come down. Monday, if you don't like it, go on. I said, if you don't want to compete, don't come. I said, but you're not going to get double teamed. And he went through nothing but one-on-one the whole time he was here. What we did was this. We used the Pro Bowl structure. What the Pro Bowl structure is simply this. It's limitations both offensively and defensively. Both offensively and defensively, which creates a level playing field and nothing but one-on-ones. And a competitor will never back away from a one-on-one challenge. And that's what we wanted. I wanted every top player that came here to know he wasn't going to be taken out of the ball game because of schematics. Earlier, before I showed you that film, I kept talking about, I don't believe you can orchestrate a competitive game. You create a competitive situation, but you can't orchestrate a game. We got a little lucky. Newspaper guys got a lot of things to write about it. But when you say, hey, we're going to put you in one-on-one situations, we're going to limit what you can do both offensively and defensively. We're going to take the schematics out of it and turn it over to the talent level on the field. Now I think you can create a competitive environment and a chance for each one of those players to succeed. What good does it do in an all-star game to have some outside linebacker come screaming off the backside free for the quarterback? Don't have the outside linebacker. It certainly don't help the quarterback, and it does nothing for the game. I like seeing those one-on-ones. And what you saw, that end result right there was nothing but one-on-ones. But it was fairness for every player, and that's a big key. A big concern is a defensive back. He said, why should I go to Mobile, Alabama and line up and play man-to-man all day? In college, they don't play man-to-man every snap. Why come to Mobile and play man-to-man? I don't care how good you are, you're going to get beat sooner or later. You don't line up against Derek Alexander and Shelby Hill and Lake Dawson and Ryan Yarborough and not get beat sometime. So what we do is this: we play two coverages under the Pro Bowl structure. We play man-free, which means you always have the safety over the top to help you in man coverage. Or we play a three-deep zone. Corners love it. That's fair. Yeah, it puts me in a competitive one-on-one situation, but he's not locked into it down after down without help. The quarterback loves it. He knows there's always going to be a free safety in the middle of the field, that he's not going to get underneath the center, and they're going to show him the middle open and then rotate on it. We're not getting it. Did not want to confuse or trick the players. Wanted to let them use their ability and let them compete amongst each other. And that's exactly what this coaching staff wanted to do too. That's why it was a cleaner game. If you limit things, you execute better. And there's a point, how much do you limit and so forth. I understand that. But if there's one thing that I was pleased with this year, other than I think we enhanced our reputation, we obtained a title sponsorship, was I think we had a football game that was competitive. And I think in the world of all-star games, anytime you can have it be more than a beauty show, more than a talent contest, I think you got a little bit lucky. But I also think that's the goal. And that's going to be the goal again for next year. I apologize for running a little bit long. I know Dr. Snyder wanted me to open up for any quick questions. Yes, sir.
Aren't sports medicine students here allowed to work the SeniorBowl this year?
Why aren't they?
Why weren't they?
I did not know they were not. Nobody contacted me about them working the SeniorBowl. Were you one of the sports medicine students? Who did you talk to?
Several of us were wanting to work and get in touch, make contacts with the professional training staff and work with them.
What we do is this. We have, let me tell you our medical setup. We had, of course, the Eagles brought their two trainers and Dolphins brought their two trainers. Plus we have Dean Kleinsmith, who being a sports medicine student, I'm sure you know, is the president of the, whatever the Trainers Association is. And also Doc Carrington from Southern Miss came down as well. So we felt like, we certainly had plenty of help there. It never got as far as me, so I don't know. I'll certainly be glad to entertain that thought next year. But yes.
Was there anything you guys didn't accomplish that you wanted to for this game? Or was it 100% success?
No, I don't know. No, I was telling Dr. Snyder. I'm really excited because I think what we put on the field and what everybody saw and the feeling was very positive. But after going through a month of critique meetings where everything is critiqued from top to bottom, right now I don't feel like we did anything right. But that's the nature of critique meetings. You're going to be overly critical of things. I'll tell you some mistakes I made. How about that? Biggest mistake I made was I didn't realize the real competitiveness between the two staffs. So the Eagles came in at 2 o'clock on Sunday, and they come in and they have a team meeting. They set up a team meeting for that night. And they meet with the players, give them the playbooks, and I think they met. The Dolphins didn't come in until 7:30 that night. Well, they got there, and they find out that the Eagles were breaking up from a team meeting. They wanted a meeting then, see. be short or anything. And what happened was, this was the first year, that had never come up before because the guys were always coming in Sunday night. So you never had a team there. Whereas I worked at travel arrangements this year where everybody reported in before 5:30. See? And so anyway, I guess the point is, whatever's done Sunday night, it's got to be agreed on in advance between the two staffs. That was probably the underlying reason because the Dolphins didn't get their meeting Sunday night. That Sheila wanted to go into early, which led us to mistake number 2, letting that happen. But those are the type of things, just not realizing how competitive the staff was going to be. And they were very, very competitive with it. They're putting this game on in front of their peers. Registration for this year's Senior Bowl is the largest in history. I mean, when I said registration, I'm talking about when you walk up to the Senior Bowl registration, in other words, you're going to go to the practices, you're going to go to the hospitality events and so forth. Basically, who we register, we had 40 that fell into the miscellaneous category. But basically, you're looking at NFL personnel, coaches, administration. You're looking at media, you're looking at sponsors, and you're looking at sports agents. 893. And we're at the point now that we really need to do a much better job with our registration and probably break it down and be more specific because we've just grown unbelievably. Like I said, but there again, with all those people coming in, we must be serving their purpose. Yes, sir.
When I was helping out a little bit, I noticed agents involved, and I was just wondering how much you and your staff trying to accommodate the agents themselves, or do you just kind of let them do their own thing?
Well, let me tell you how I believe about those. And not just agents, but about all of them. And you got to understand, it's going to take me a long time to overcome 15 years of being a college coach. I believe you treat all your players the same. I believe you treat everybody else in association with the athletic environment the same. Same with agents. Treat them all the same. Every one of them the same. I'm going to be upfront with them. I'm going to be accessible, but I'm not going to make any deals, and I'm not going to treat one any better than another. Because when they deal with me, they're going to know that everybody else is getting the same treatment. And I think that goes back to the players, just wanting the one-on-ones. As long as it's fair and competitive, nobody minds. It's when people feel like they're not getting a fair shot at something, or they're at a disadvantage, I think you have problems. The agents, I tell you what, you hear all these horror stories about sports agents. Well, I deal with them an awful lot, and I'm going to tell you what, for every bad story, there's 20 or 25 good stories. I am a believer in the agents, and I'm the one who deals with them, and I'm the one that believes that most of them have the client's best interest at heart. It's like anything else. You're going to hear about the athlete who makes a mistake off the field. You don't hear about all the ones that are doing the right things. But I found that the agents were very fair, and all they want is just be treated the same. Yes, sir.
What do you think about the NCAA proposal that's going to allow coaches to act as agents for their players?
Might as well. They already do.
Don't you think that leaves a little problem with the fiduciary relationship?
Yeah, it does. When I said they do, the problem is, see, I don't know of a coach. The real value of an agent is when you negotiate with the team. I don't know if a coach has ever gone that far. I know from coaching top athletes that agents would try to go through me on some things. But I don't, do you know of an example that you're thinking of where the coach really kind of stepped out of his bounds?
It hasn't happened yet, but the proposal is to allow him to actually market the player and be in a fiduciary relationship where he would get a percentage of that player's contract.
Okay.
Sounds like a major conflict of interest.
I got a real problem with that, a real problem. know, what does it take to be an agent? I guess that's the other question, too. One of the guys that was wanting to play in the Senior Bowl, a quarterback from another part of the country, his dad got very involved with me. And his dad was so involved with this particular son that he took a sabbatical from his teaching position to travel with his son, be with the team, everything they did. And then when he got into the deal of trying to learn about the market and what his son's value was and who to talk to and whatnot, he realized the only way to really have all that information was he became a registered agent. Not that he's planning on being an agent, but he just wanted access to all that information. And I know what I went through with that guy, and I just don't see how a coach can fulfill his duties and become an agent. I agree with you. I think it's preposterous. Yes, sir.
What did it cost Dell Champs to sponsor the Senior Bowl, and what did their sponsorship basically cover as far as expenses and all that?
Okay. Well, as always, we've never told anybody exactly what benefits we're getting from. I will tell you this: it's a multi-year deal. What it grew out of basically is, Dell Champs and the Senior Bowl have been involved in a charity run for a number of years, and so we knew there was a working relationship there, and we knew the potential for sponsorship in that area. I don't think people realize what it costs to put the Senior Bowl on. See, that 893, I said we registered, we entertain those people. We have hospitality events for those people. We charge nothing at registration, and never have. So it cost us quite a bit of money to entertain that many players, in addition to putting on the football game. Now, everybody would like to think that you read about the SEC negotiating this new television deal and how many millions of dollars they're getting. Everybody like to think that if you're on television, you're getting a lot of money. That's not the case with a single athletic event. It's a lot easier to sell packages than a single athletic event. Certainly, we gain some revenue from a TV contract, but nothing what you think it is at all. So the cost of putting the game on. Dell Champs was not a necessity right now. It was becoming more and more of a necessity. We spend $55,000 just flying the players in. Total budget. Can't even give you that answer because, as you know, we're a nonprofit charity organization. So obviously, our goal is to make as much money as we can after expenses are paid. We don't need. Example, on March the 16th, next week, whatever it is, I think it's on a Tuesday, we're fixing to give away between $150,000 and $200,000. So we know we're making it, but we're doing it to disperse. Yes?
Since you do a lot of fundraising within your organization, do you turn around and help other organizations in the community?
We try to keep everything local that we possibly can. And yeah, most of the sponsorship arrangements, it works out that the sponsorship can benefit from it. I'm trying to think of the best way to answer that. Like that. Let me give you an idea so we can be more specific. Some sponsorship arrangements we have, okay? Delta Airlines is one, okay? Now, that's more what we can do for Delta there. Now, what we can do, though, Delta's also the official airline of the National Football League. So we certainly can do some marketing things on our end to make sure they go through the district office here and get credited for flights coming in and out of Mobile, things like that. So we can market our game to basically three groups of people outside of Mobile: professional leagues, the colleges, and the media. So anything that we send out, like on April 1st, we've got another newsletter publication going out, and it'll go all the way across the country, and we'll do some things for Delta in that regard. Contel is cellular. Now, We can do a lot of things there for Contel Cellular. I think a good example I can give you.
I mean, more like the local organizations, like high schools and things like that, that may need some type of sponsorship and various things that they do.
Do we encourage, is what you're saying?
Do you help? Like, you do a lot of fundraising yourself. Do you help them by the same means do fundraising? Support them?
No. I mean, to answer that question specifically, no. Now, what I do is they all know that if there's any way I can help them, they'll call. Playing fundraising golf tournaments, speak at different fundraising events for them, things like that. Personally, I help any way I can, and they know it. Take the high school all-star game. I do a lot of things with the high schools here in that regard. But it's more of a personal thing that I do. As far as involving other sponsors with them, I haven't done that. Something to consider, you know, other than World Sporting Goods now. Of course, World's already involved with it. But you know, you think about it, some of our sponsors, I don't know if a local high school derives full benefits from it, really. I mean, I don't know. I'll do more, I promise. Yes, ma'am.
Where did you have started?
Most recently, I was at Southern Miss. And before that, I was at Alabama and Clemson. Played at East Carolina.
From what year to what year?
Oh, yeah, don't get me. I don't want to be specific. You realize I'm getting older, don't you? I'll give you a quick resume, real quick here. Played in East Carolina for Pat Dye. Okay, I did that from 73 through 77. When I finished playing, he offered me a job coaching on his staff there. Okay, so I did that for 2 years. When he left and went to Wyoming, instead of going to Wyoming with him, I went to Clemson. Okay, and I was there for 2 years. And one of those years was in '81. And we got real lucky, went all the way in for a national championship. And I went back to the office after that Orange Bowl win, and I get a call from a guy named Coach Bryant. Wants me to come in and talk to him. And I'm going to tell you what, you talking about being titled and interviewed now. But I was real fortunate to have a chance to work with him. Of course, as we all know, he passed and stayed at Alabama with Ray Perkins through '86. Okay. After the '86 year, we were doing pretty good. All those years, I was always the positioning coach and the recruiting coordinator. Always had 2 responsibilities. We were rocking along, doing real good at Alabama recruiting-wise. And Coach Perkins asked me if I would be a full-time recruiter. Told him I'd give it a shot for a year. And that's basically why I left Alabama, was I wasn't ready to walk away from coaching.
When we could go for it again?
No, I think it was Bill Curry. And I went to, I'm telling you where I went. I went to USL, Southwestern Louisiana, with a good friend of mine named Nelson Stokely. Nelson was the quarterback coach at Clemson when we won a national championship. And I went there with him and spent 3 seasons there before going with Curly Hallman at Southern Miss. And Curly, that national championship year, was the secondary coach, and I was the linebacker coach. And then from there to here. So it's kind of, as always, who you know, experiences you've had, that sort of thing. But I thought long and hard about giving up coaching, because I really liked it. Loved it. Only thing I ever done. Thank y'all. I appreciate your patience. I apologize for going on.
If you want to talk to Steve afterwards about the mentorship possibilities, he did have Jason Foltz and Mike, Jason Foltz and Mike Duffy worked with him this year. So if you want to talk with Steve afterwards, I'm sure he will.
Hey, can I say something? I think it's important, because I told Dr. I was going to say, they did a great job. they represented this institution extremely well. And we think it's a very mutually beneficial relationship that interns can come from the sports academy to the Senior Bowl. And if you're interested, in the fall quarter, contact us. Let us know. Normally what we do is we take 2 to 3 interns a year. Let me tell you the ideal situation for us, okay? Ideal situation is to do your internship hours, what's the quarter during December?
Winter quarter.
Winter,
Fall quarter.
fall quarter. And be available like Justin and Mike did, 24 hours a day, 3 weeks in January. That's an ideal situation for us because so much is going on there. I'm not saying we won't work with other situations. It just so happened that Mike and Justin both fell into that category where they completed their coursework, completed their internship, and then we were able to utilize their skills all during January. Yes, sir.
Besides the learning experience that an intern gets, one of the other perks that they get is the potential to get exposure to potential employment. Mike had mentioned to me that this opportunity did not prevail for him, and I was wondering if you will reconsider that particular position that you had, or whether there is something that can be done to help people possibly get employment in sports management and athletic directing.
Well, I think what happened with Mike specifically is you got to look what type of job you're targeting too. He asked me to set him up an interview with Jim Morrow for an assistant coaching job with the Saints. I mean, I knew the other people that Coach Morrow was interviewing, and I told Mike that. But I also understand your point too. Our access is more with coaches than in the field of administration, much more so. However, more and more the general managers are coming in, but I understand your concern. We'll try to do something. Anyway, now that we get back down the down note, just like I got shot down in high schools, if you're interested, we'd love to have you. The other people did a great job for us.
Okay, the sign-up board is going around. Make sure that you signed in with your initials, and someone sees I get that board back. Brian, do you have an announcement?
Yeah, there'll be an ambassadors meeting concerning the Youth Sports Summit. So I need to see all ambassadors immediately after this convocation.
Okay, another announcement that I've been asked to make. If you're interested in this topic, should Tanya Harding have participated with the U.S. team in the Winter Olympics in 1994? There'll be a debate on that topic Tuesday, March the 8th, 1994 at 4:15. That'll be in room number 3. That'll be a part of the Sport Leadership Principles doctorate course that undergraduate students master's degree students are invited to join that class at that particular time. Another announcement is that this will be the last convocation of the quarter. Next Friday, the convocation will be at Gulf Shores at the Alabama State Convention Center down there. If you have plans to go down to that, you need to see Cynthia Ryder so that she can slot you into one of the discussion groups. And we'll try to get some maps out and put them on the information desk down there so that you know where the convention center is at. You can't miss it. It's right on the Gulf. You go dead end into Gulf Shores and turn left, and it's on your right-hand side. It's a big, round, built building. Brian and the ambassadors will be working down there. They'll all have directions for you to get there also. Since this is the last convocation, I'd like to, I don't want to read off names, I'm afraid I'm going to miss somebody. All those that this is their last convocation, will you please, won't be here next quarter, will you please stand? Remain standing. On behalf of the administration, the faculty, and the staff of the Academy, we've enjoyed working with you. We hope that you all return for commencement on July the 9th, and that's going to be at the Mobile Convention Center this year. And you also need to be reminded anyone else, any announcements that need to be sent?
If the faculty can gather here for about 5 minutes, we need a 5-minute work session.
5-minute faculty work session. Yes.
The FCA, we have an FCA gathering every Thursday night at 7 o'clock, and next week it's at Matt Renton's house, and we'll put the Matt downstairs on the information desk.
Fellowship of Christian Athletes,
Yeah.
this Thursday, next Thursday?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday, okay, we'll put the announcements downstairs. Brian?
Yeah, there are internships available right now. Providence Medical Center keeps calling up. They need wellness and cardiac rehab type that